So before we kind of delve into exactly what GA4 is and the benefits of it, I think it's important to look how far we've came. So the original iteration of Google Analytics, the kind of entire package, it was launched initially back in 2005, which seems like a lifetime ago for many of us, and the world is completely different as well as user behaviour. So let's look at that first part there, the world first. So going back to November 2005, Angela Merkel just became the first female Chancellor of Germany. Lionel Messi had just broken into Barcelona's first team. But maybe most importantly, Westlife and Madonna were duking it out for the UK #1 in the singles chart, so the world is completely different. Going back to maybe something that's more relevant to what we're discussing today, so GA4 was launched initially back in October 2020. I don't think at the time it was as big emphasised of how important it was going to be. I think that at the time, obviously everyone's still going through the pandemic and everything else within that. I think now as we're kind of starting to really come out, the importance needs to shift back to taking hold of your data. The benefits of GA4, again, we're going to go into this in a lot more detail, but they're massive. So again, they're kind of no longer needing to create specific views for user ID reporting. It's fully integrated by default. That's going to be a recurring theme in a lot of things that we're going to discuss today, is that things are included as standard within the analytics package now, which offers fantastic insight into user performance within every single website in the world. GA4 offers significant integrations. A large part of what we do is through BigQuery these days, but also integrates into other packages as well, which again, kind of having them within a single analytics umbrella is just so useful. For a lot of people, I think that last point there at the bottom, kind of built-in cross-domain tracking, it's always been a niggling pain for a lot of our clients, and again, with that built in, it's going to simplify that whole process. So fantastic what Google's been able to put together. So hopefully this is kind of the part where you've all kind of joined us for today. We're going to kick over takeaways. I'm going to take the first one here. The first one is plan event tracking, and we're going to go into a bit of detail of how that has changed slightly with GA4 rolling out. So from sessions to events, Google has reinvented how those are measured. So it really is a shift towards data-led analytics, which is a kind of recurring buzzword I think in the industry over the last few years now. But essentially it's going to give users a lot more control, users in terms of us who are using the platform day in, day out, to understand how users are engaging with our websites, and it's going to give us a lot more insight into that data as well. So hopefully they won't be too unfamiliar to people, but in terms of the way that events were measured within GA3, you were very limited with that sense, often at times only linking to category, action and label. Again, with a shift to GA4, that's going to really blow that out of the water, and you're going to be able to get a lot more insight from that. So I'm going to go into a bit of detail with a few examples as well. So again, on the left there, we've got our category, action and label, fairly limited. Often at times part of that is probably a lack for a better word, redundant. The GA4 setup, very simple. We only need to integrate a download_file event, and what we'll actually do by default will give you access to be able to split that kind of data by over 169 different dimensions, which again, that kind of blows my mind just hearing that, but that's going to be built in as standard. You won't have to set anything else up apart from that initial setup, so I think it's going to be the case of once that's done, it's going to be pretty easy. And again, there's also some added benefits in there as well when it comes to GA4 in terms of by default built into the package. Again, recurring theme, you're going to be able to look at video progress on site, scroll tracking, which was a nightmare to set up previously. It's going to be in there again, very easy, and then kind of understanding first visit analysis and lots more. Again, we're going to cover it in more detail to come, but fantastic set of options available within the package as default. But planning ahead for your event tracking is very important, and that will set you up for success going forward. Again, a kind of maybe an advanced example is understanding how users log in. In the past, going back a few years now, users would default log in through their email address. That through social media integrations and Google having a direct login platform either via Google, via Facebook, via Amazon. Having that on your website, again, it kind of throws up the considerations of, is this a better UX than it was before? And again, being able to very easily understand that kind of login method, process it, and understand the expected conversion rate would probably be the main thing I'd be looking at there. Does having those additional login features improve conversion rate, or does it drop off? We're going to understand that a lot better through GA4 and be able to kind of really break down that user login event, which we've never been able to really do in much detail before.
Cool. All right, so I'll take key takeaway 2. So this one is to do with following Google's setup help. So obviously Google is very aware that we've been on GA3 or Universal Analytics, as it's called, for quite some time, obviously since 2005. This is a major change on the platform. So GA4, you need to have proper steps and recommendations to follow to properly integrate it and set it up accordingly to your business. What's good about what Google has done is they've released quite a few recommendations and best practices. And then in the screenshot below here, you can see the setup assistant where Google calls out quite a few key features to consider. Not everything may be right for your business, but then again, a lot of these are there for a specific reason, and it's the best leverage them to the benefit of your business as well. So we would advise following Google's helpful recommendations and best practices, and we've a bit more on some key features and some key steps within the actual setup and integration. One of the most important GA4 features we want to call out are data streams. And so the data streams here are web pages or apps that send data through to the GA properties. So as per the screenshot at the bottom here in the page, you can see that on the right hand side there's iOS app, Android app, and web. So web pertains to your website, and iOS and Android are for apps. So Google have really simplified the process here. They're trying to make it as user-friendly as possible to streamline and facilitate the implementation and adoption of GA4, which is good to see, and hopefully you don't encounter any issues with the actual setup. In terms of setting up a good measuring framework, Google have also put a really strong one in place, and a few features from this are the Google Signals, which is basically any users who are signed into a Google account. And basically the benefit of this is you can create specific reports, you can do a lot of cross-device reporting, cross-device remarketing, and other capabilities which would not be useful otherwise. So it would be very important to turn on Google Signals. That would be advised from our point of view. And then the next feature here will be setting up the user ID feature. So this is very important because it basically allows you to set up unique identifiers for individual users, so you can basically track their behaviors or actions across different sessions on different device types on different platforms as well. So another very important one to consider. And then the last one we've called out here is creating audiences and goals. So again, very important. In terms of audiences, Google have actually supplied some templated audiences for users and businesses to leverage. And these can be for demographics, so that could be for age, for gender, for location. There can be some for technologies, platform, OS, there can be device type, device model, and so on. So there's a few templated audiences. You can use some of the predefined attributes and then create your audiences via that. But it's not to say that there aren't custom audiences which can be leveraged, basically starting from scratch, creating and using parameters to create the audience that's relevant for your business. And then there's some other different audiences that you can leverage, which we'll touch on later on in the presentation. But these are some of the important ones, so we want to call out that can facilitate with your GA4 setup. In terms of the actual conversion, as per the screenshot in the slide here, you can see that basically you can create conversion events, but then you also have an option on the far right hand side to mark a conversion as a conversion. And basically this allows the user flexibility in how important user actions and activities are measured, and then using that to the best of your advantage. So again, another process where they've really simplified everything to make it as easy as possible for you to carry out this implementation. Next, a commonly asked question that we have is, what about my thank you page path conversion? So with GA4, there's two different routes you can take. The first being Google Tag Manager. So a lot of businesses leverage Google Tag Manager and have a container live on their website. Some do not have that, and they have the snippet of code just pasted on the website. So if you use Google Tag Manager, you can pass a custom event via GTM. Otherwise, you can use the event creation functionality within GA4, which is pertaining to the screenshot here, which basically you define specific fields. So the first one being the custom event name, so the name of your conversion. In this situation, it'd be my thank you page. Then you have matching conditions, so basically the parameters of the conversion that you're setting up. Here you have parameter for page location because it pertains to a thank you page. You have operator, so this is just a variable, so it can be contains or does not contain, for example. And then lastly, you have value, and in this case, value is going to be thank you, which is going to be a portion of the URL of the thank you page. And so whenever someone lands on that thank you page, it will then fire that and then trigger a goal being completed, or an event in this case. This is an option for users. We would probably advise rolling with Google Tag Manager. It's a much more simplified process, but it's not to say that you can also carry this out via GA4 as well. So on to key takeaway 3. It might seem like a pretty common one, but ensuring tags are placed correctly on the website is a vital one to get right. We have seen situations where the tags are in incorrect areas of the website and not firing properly, and that can lead to a whole array of tracking issues and just incorrect data pulling through and things like that. So one of the most important things we can call out here is just ensuring that the tags are properly placed in the correct areas on the website. Now, if you're using GTM, we would advise using one container rather than three. So in the screenshot below here, it shows a screenshot from Google Tag Manager, and clearly you have three different containers within Google Tag Manager. That's the GTM container, the GA3, so universal tag, and then the GA4, the new tag. So our advice and recommendation, as well as from Google, would be to consolidate into one container if you're using GTM, and then have the code placed on the head of the page. However, if the tags are pasted on the website, then you can advise triple checking, basically ensuring that you have the tags in the right appropriate places. But if you are thinking about potentially using GTM rather than the actual tags on site, we would recommend doing that. It's a very simplified, easy process, and your dev team or your data team should be able to carry that out at their end. Otherwise, I'm sure there's people who can be reached out to help and assist with that. So a bonus tip here that we've included is Tag Assistant. Now it's something, tool and extension you can have specifically on Google Chrome and potentially some other browsers, where you can use it to see whether there are tags present on site. It can be a great tool for debugging and just understanding what is on the site, and if there's duplicate tags, for example, you can visualize that there and then understand, okay, we need to remove some snippets of code from the website, or carry out a change via GTM. So a few things to do as well there. Here we have GA4. It's not necessarily in real, quote unquote, real-time reporting. So if you are not seeing any data come through, don't be too worried or concerned. Just wait for a bit of time, and then hopefully you start getting data coming through and populating within GA4. And so then the last one is to do with the consent banners. So it's a very important one, especially a hot topic in today's day and age of the cookie consent banners and things like that. And we've seen some examples of websites where they're tweaking it consistently, trying to get to the appropriate consent banner, which has it so that you don't lose session data or minimize the discrepancy between how much you lose there. So this is a very important one to consider. With GA4, it makes consent mode was feature 4, it's in GA4, so it makes it very easy to set up, and it also helps with making compliance easier. You don't have any issues on your website. So basically with GTM in the screenshot below, you can use features within that to set it up, so it's very easy. Again, within GA4 as well, you can use features within that to set it up as well, but we would advise, again, I think the narrative here is Google Tag Manager is very powerful, and if we were to recommend anything off the back of this presentation on top of the key takeaways, would be to adopt Google Tag Manager as well, because it can be very powerful for your business and simplify your life, hopefully, and facilitate it. So yes, so I will now hand you over to Fraser, who will chat through key takeaways 4 and 5.
Thanks, Logan. So on to key takeaway number 4, so creating engaging dashboards, and this is, to be honest, quite a big one. So with the change to GA4, it kind of opens up, it kind of limits you in the short run, but then obviously I think over a long time you're going to hopefully understand very quickly that it can actually be a lot better. So when it comes to GA4, Google, maybe intentionally, maybe not, have actually included a kind of stripped back version in terms of the reports that are included, and we maybe take for granted as part of GA3. They have released a few more in recent times, but I don't think that we should assume that there's going to be plenty in there when it comes to July next year, when GA3 becomes no more. And a big part of what we are wanting to do with the majority of our clients, because the power of it currently and as we move towards that cut-off date is going to increase significantly. So leveraging Google Data Studio as part of our reports, which actually very kindly can be fully integrated within GA4, which is one of the big things to take away from this. And again, leveraging Google Data Studio to fuel and power your reports going forward. So it's already integrated with GA4 and allows you to create very, very visual demonstrations of how performance data is engaging with your website, your campaign segmentation. You can even pull some things from Google like auction insights now into Google Data Studio, which again has not been possible really through any other format, and consolidating them and again to be able to view things very, very quickly over different date ranges and different metrics very, very quickly. You can provide top level reports to potentially more senior stakeholders, but if you do want to have a deeper dive into the data at a very, very granular level, you can have reports set up there which are fully automated and can be customized, as I say, to any kind of date range, which again is incredibly useful. Again, maybe a kind of Google product, the kind of warning flag may be going off that can I get other platform data in there? The answer is yes, you can. We often use Supermetrics, which is a fantastic platform to pull in data from other platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, LinkedIn, StackAdapt, Programmatic,
Spotify.
Spotify.
The list goes on.
Yeah, the list goes on. The connectors are massive and ever growing. So no matter where your campaigns are running, if it is from an ad campaign perspective, you can even pull Google Trend data in there as well. So again, to get some insight into kind of how the market's going and kind of trending, consolidate all that data within Google Data Studio, and your reporting will be much better moving forward. So potentially quite a short one there, but one that's super important, because I think that it may need a bit of learning to get fully upskilled when it comes to Google Data Studio. And kind of a sub point for that is the upskilling part is really kind of go after the kind of new features, which is our key takeaway number 5. Really to introduce this is 2023 Bugatti. This is how you should kind of have in your mind of what analytics can be to you, rather than what it was maybe initially released for back in 2005. We jump to the next slide. A lovely Fiat Panda from 2005. So again, just take the comparison there that the new modern version can be a lot more than what J3 or any previous iteration of the platform has been to you before, and really go after those new features to make the most of it. And we're going to share with you a few which we're kind of using already, which we're kind of slowly falling in love with. So the big challenge when using Universal Analytics J3 was sample data. And it's often very frustrating to kind of understand that the data you're looking at is sampled, which again, if people don't know, if a query set or a data set is fairly large, cutoff point is 500k sessions, which to be honest isn't really a lot, depending if you are looking over a long date period. Often that data will be sampled, so it won't actually be reliant on 100% of sessions. It may be 80, it may be 50, it may be 10% of sessions, depending on the data set. So you can't really make for sure optimization decisions based on that data. That's not going to be a problem. There will not be sampling in J4 with a lot of reports, and again, when you kind of factor that in of kind of cross-device and everything else goes into that, the insight that you can get and be reliant, and the data in terms of its reliability will be much better than it is currently, which, you know, for us being a PPC agency is massive. So we absolutely love that feature in J4. Another one is, again, kind of going back to my initial point, is the number of built-in features that come as standard within the analytics package. So again, just by collecting that data, there's a lot more that Google can really offer you. Again, maybe being a bit selfish from an advertising perspective, but it can also kind of be across kind of data collection and insight that you can get to. So you can get insight into likely kind of predictive audiences is what they're calling it. So users who are likely to purchase on the website over the next kind of 7 days. You can also see users who are unlikely to visit again and again. Even just thinking from a remarketing perspective, we can now segment those audiences into 2 different groups and treat them differently, and we'll come on to that in just a bit in a second, of kind of indicating of why that's useful. So
yeah, and just to jump in quickly, and this, I guess on this slide in the screenshot below, you see the predictive audience that Fraser was mentioning there, and then you also have the templates in the general that I mentioned. So it's all, you know, in one area consolidated, so hopefully it makes it as easy as possible for you guys to set that up as well.
Absolutely. So again, looking at that kind of predictive audience of what Google's calling it. So within Universal Analytics with J3, we may, as part of a kind of e-commerce strategy, look to kind of create a cart abandoner remarketing audience and serve ads to those users if they do come through via search. We may want to be extremely aggressive to them, or look to serve them some sort of display remarketing, again to get them back to the site and have them complete their purchase. That's great, but again, J4 takes that to a step further. With the predictive audience, we can take a subset of that cart abandoner group and really prioritize them with much more aggressive bids than we usually would if we do anticipate that they are likely to result in a purchase within the next 7 days. And again, if we go back again at that predictive churn audience, we can do the same on the other end. And even if they set on a subset of that cart abandon audience, if they're unlikely to make a purchase based on Google signals, we can look to bid down from them, or potentially in some extreme circumstances look to exclude them completely. So incredibly useful. The next point, again, I'm a big fan of Stranger Things, but this kind of ties in, you'll see where I'm going in a second, is the new feature called User ID, which I think is one of the most useful ones that Analytics 4 offers as standard. So once you get this installed, you can kind of get your customers. Instead of permanently tattooing them with an identifier, you can map that within your analytics package. And again, this posts massive benefits, which you'll see on the next slide. So in the current setup, which is on the left here, you may get 3 different sessions all mapped through the ID 10, 11 and 12, which Analytics in its current iteration, or J3 Universal Analytics, may see as 3 different users. Through the user ID feature, we can actually get insight to see if they are the same user, and we can treat them differently. So again, if we do use that feature, and once that's installed, you can actually map across different devices, across different sessions. You may see a user come through initially on a laptop, smartphone, and then back on desktop as well. And we're treating them the same. We know that they've been 3 times. Their engagement is much higher than we typically see just now with analytics. We want to be bidding more for them. We want to be treating them as a more valued consumer on the website, and we need to get that insight to do so. And again, this opens a range of benefits. If we jump onto the next slide here. So again, for a very, very top level, you're going to be able to compare users who are signed in versus non-signed in users from a very top level, understand the performance differences. Almost think of that as like returning versus new just now, maybe as a kind of good example. You can get that understanding of those performance benchmarks initially, but then most importantly, you can actually create your marketing list based on those signed in users. And again, if you are seeing repeat purchases coming through based on signed in users, again, understanding that insight kind of really feeds into customer lifetime value, massive for any business. Treating those users differently is now possible through remarketing lists, and leveraging this part of our advertising campaign is naturally a big one for us. So it's a fantastic feature, and one that we're really, really glad that they've been able to implement. Another feature again is going to be really the kind of number of integrations that the analytics platform can now have. We leverage a lot of reports and data through BigQuery because of the power that it can harness over even platforms such as Excel as well. So we run everything through BigQuery. That's just one of the kind of integrations that's possible. And again, the kind of underlying thing of some of these new features is the kind of machine learning or ML models that are able to be adopted as part of GA4, but it's just a kind of one example of the number of integrations that's possible. I think we've got a few more that we've got coming up. It offers way more integrations than just machine learning options as well. So Google Merchant Center, Salesforce, Firebase, without the need to kind of purchase GA360, which is pricey for a lot of businesses as well, tying in with ads and other integrations as well, which we're super happy that they've been able to do. So, and we've kind of given an example on the next slide of where that might be useful. So going back 18 months now, I think, Google opted in shopping feeds. So typically what we normally run shopping campaigns for, they now show organically, even just having a feed. And by integrating Merchant Center directly within Analytics 4, you can actually see this performance data streamlined within the platform, which is possible, although you need to kind of do it in a roundabout way at the moment. And again, just streamlining everything to the same platform is fantastic for us as well. So those covers our main 5 tips. Hopefully you've got a bit of insight into the possibilities that GA4 provides, but we didn't want to let you go without giving you a bonus tip. And call it a cop out, but here we go. Start. And this is both start using the platform now. We're in a countdown of about 10 and a half, 11 months left before the cut-off point. And again, GA3 is completely redundant. You won't see a single session tracked on your website. Remarketing audiences will drop off a cliff. It's important that we all start using GA4 a lot more now and getting these integrations implemented as fast as possible. It's going to put you ahead of your competition, and the businesses that get that insight faster will see the benefit faster than the competitors, which naturally to me seems like a no-brainer. Also, on the flip side of things, the platform does operate slightly differently to Universal Analytics, so it's really important that managers and teams who are using the platform get to grips with the platform to unlock its full potential. So start today. Very, very handily, in the last 2 days, Google have actually announced that they've started doing an e-learning course similar to some of the certifications for Google Ads or previously Analytics before. They've revamped a new one where you can actually get certified and say that you're a Google Analytics 4 Pro. So definitely for people wanting to get to grips with the platform a little bit, we definitely recommend starting that. For anyone who's a bit further along and maybe needing more professional advice from an agency, I can't think of any that come to mind, we're actually offering Google Analytics 4 consultancy. So if you do want to reach out at all, we've got our email address in the next one. We'd love to hear from you. We're extremely passionate about ensuring that businesses can unlock the full potential for GA4, and there's no time at the present to get that conversation started. So please reach out if anyone does have any questions for us. We'll be sending across the deck to everyone who's joined us today. Again, thank you for joining us this morning and giving up your time to hear from us. Please feel free to reach out with any questions. We've got our email addresses here. We'd love to hear from you. We'll also be sending around a short survey to get some feedback about your thoughts on the session today. So if you can fill that in for us, that would be fantastic too. I think that's it. So without any further ado, again, thank you for joining us today, and we hope you've learned something. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and we'll hopefully hear from you all soon. Enjoy GA4.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.